Part 12. Ambition's First Step. The Sound of Sovereign Assent and Absolute Liberty. Chapter 1. The Transition to Naked Stone and Sovereign Will. Having crossed the definitive psychological threshold of the point of no return, a moment marked by the final dissolution of doubt, Ilara now encountered the defining, uncompromising physical reality of the upper mountain. The brief, gentle, upward path from the granite ledge had quickly vanished into the sheer face of the peak. The gentle slope gives way to naked stone, a sheer, abrasive, uncompromising verticality that demanded total, unrelenting commitment and a faultless application of technique. The environment immediately imposed a new physical reality. The air grows crisp. The true ascent begins. The thin, sharp atmosphere acted as a severe clarifying tonic, purging any final remnants of hesitation and reinforcing the absolute finality of her choice. This profound physical transition precisely mirrored an immense internal victory. The agonizing moments of doubt, the winding nervous trill of a clarinet, the sudden wave of paralyzing grief were utterly and cleanly dispelled. The inner struggle finally now wins. Not the struggle against the external mountain, but the struggle against the internal capacity for doubt and retreat. The dominant force now was a powerful desire to stand alone, an inherent, overwhelming need for self-sovereignty that had been the secret sustained fuel of her entire journey. She was no longer driven by residual historical debt, the fear of communal failure, or simple physical ambition, but by the pure, distilled, uncorrupted essence of her own self-defined will. The music of this renewed total commitment was an explosive burst of energy, contrasting abruptly and dramatically with the contemplative piano and the fragile clarinet. The strong guitar starts strumming, sharp and loud, instantly launching into a powerful, driving and relentless rhythm. This was a driving tempo that cannot be denied, a force that propelled her upward and forward with irresistible momentum. This new electric sound emerged dramatically, emerging strongly from the morning cloud, replacing the hazy uncertainty of the lower world with the high-altitude clarity of sonic truth. There was no longer any room for hesitation, concealment, or psychological retreat. She was moving forward with nothing left for her to try and hide. The ascent was now an absolute, public declaration to the universe of her deepest, most private ambition. Chapter 2. The Electric Rhythm of Freedom and Intentional Footsteps. The physical sensation of this new absolute commitment was immediate, visceral, and profoundly overwhelming. The feeling is electric, raw, and bold, a searing surge of pure physical and mental energy coursing through every muscle and synapse in her body. The driving emotional anchor was the folk rock rhythm pulsing through the air, a raw, elemental, and utterly present sound that anchored her entirely to the immediate vertical moment, stripping away all historical baggage and future anxieties. This rhythm represented a breaking free from stories growing old, a final triumphant severance from the restrictive, passive narratives of the past, including the tragic failure chronicled in the ancient journal. Her focus was entirely on the immediate, tangible, and unavoidable future, a challenge that she finally must bear. This challenge was not merely the physical climb, but the ultimate burden of defining and realizing her own sovereign destiny. The very nature of the final ascent now demanded a relentless, surgical focus of the mind. The climb demands a focus of the will, a concentration so intensely absolute it bordered on a waking vertical meditation. Each physical movement was a crucial philosophical statement, each footstep planned, intentional, and strong. There was no margin for error, no reliance on mere instinct or muscle memory. Every grip, every shift of balance, every placement of weight required total, unflinching mental presence. This meticulous, demanding effort was driven by a deep compulsion to achieve the hill, not merely to reach the summit as a point on a map, but to reach the place where she completely can belong. The peak was not just a geographic endpoint, it was the ultimate, necessary, and predestined home for her sovereign spirit. The sonic component that accompanied this driving rhythm was one of absolute, unassailable confidence. The sound is one of confidence and might, a pure, unfiltered expression of capability and self-trust. It mirrored perfectly the surging strength that flows through every vein, the powerful, biological affirmation of her total physical and mental readiness for the task ahead. This moment was the tangible, living proof of her resolve, the simple fact of stepping into light, the full, uncompromising, and revealing light of the high altitude, where shadows are sharp and the truth of one's actions is undeniable. It was the absolute moment of Anne proving that the cost is worth the pain. Every sacrifice, every moment of fear, every instance of solitude was utterly validated by the sheer, exhilarating act of the climb itself. Chapter 3. The Single Truth and the Turning Point. The melody, woven through the sharp, insistent guitar strumming, was structurally simple, the perfect echo of the purity of her intention. The melody is simple, clear, and proud. Unadorned by complexity or emotional pretense, it was deliberately unburdened by the chaos, yet to be free from the potential dangers and immense hidden difficulties that lay concealed above the final ridge. Her focus was so absolute on the immediate vertical challenge that the remote future was irrelevant. The music was a single truth, shouted out to the crowd, though no crowd was present. The declaration was made with ultimate authority to the mountains and the vast witnessing sky. This moment of pure, decisive action was the first true moment of her liberty. Liberty, for Alara, was not defined as freedom from external obligation, but as the complete, unconstrained freedom to act upon her deepest, most sovereign purpose. The guitar's driving theme reached its absolute peak, a final, unyielding statement of total personal resolution. The final chord is struck and rings away, a resonant, sustaining sound that hangs in the thin air, marking the complete and final break from all that came before. This sound cemented her choice as she commits to facing all, the heights accepting the full, unmitigated measure of the physical, spiritual, and existential challenge. This was more than just a physical step upward. It was the turning point upon this crucial day, the specific, irreversible moment where long-held aspiration finally became absolute reality. The music concludes with the profound, serene sensation of a soul released and bathed in perfect light. The light was simultaneously the literal, sharp, high-altitude sunlight and the metaphorical light of self-acceptance and destined fulfillment. With the sound fading, the driving rhythm of the guitar finally internalized into the steady, the powerful pulse of her own triumphant heart, Alara continued her vertical journey, committed entirely to the sovereign path ahead.